Hi YouTube, it's me Danny, and if you're new here, welcome to my channel. My name is Danny and I make vlogs about all the things that I'm passionate about, which include travel, aviation, and more recently I'm talking about all things feminine spirituality, feminine energy, and just really anything that I'm interested in and I feel passionate to speak more on. And these days, the reason why I'm not on YouTube as much anymore, although I was a few weeks ago when I was traveling through Europe, is because right now I've created my own business around feminine energy and coaching women and running women's circles and doing a lot of work with feminine spirituality, which is why I am not coming on YouTube as much as I used to, because I'm very busy. I've got a podcast now and I'm very busy with events. I want to get back more into YouTube, particularly doing more spiritual type videos, which is what today's video is. And today's video is on the witch wound. So we're going to be talking about witches, and I think this is a conversation that's really important for all people, whether you are a man or a woman, and even more so if you are afraid of the witch, if there's some sort of fear or disgust maybe, or there's something that you don't want to associate with the witch. Maybe you see it as evil, maybe you see witches as demonic. There's a lot here to unravel, but that is exactly why I want to have this conversation, because a lot of us, what we've been told and conditioned to believe about witches is not true. And this is really important to understand, because a lot of what the witch represents is a part of ourselves, men and women, a part of the feminine energy, the feminine aspect of the divine, which has been shut down from society, particularly within women, within the feminine. And in order for us to bring it into light, so the dark literally means it's hidden. So at the moment it's a hidden part of ourselves that a lot of us are like cut off to. We need to start having conversations like this and understand what a witch truly is in order to reclaim that aspect of ourselves, so that we can fully step into our power and into our full expression as humans. Because if we're only showing one facet of who we are to the world and to ourselves even, we're not actually being true to who we are and what we came here to do. So I love talking about witches, not just because I love Harry Potter, which I do. I think Harry Potter is awesome. And since a young girl, I always was hoping that I would get a letter from Hogwarts that accepted me into Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Witchery, which never came. However, what I've discovered as I've gotten older is that I am in fact a witch, and I think I always knew from a very young age that was what I was. But you might look at me and I'm wearing a pink top and I'm not wearing a pointy hat. I don't have a big nose with a wart on it. A lot of people know me. I am a very happy and loving, and I don't consider myself evil person. So I think it's really important to talk about witches and what it means to be a witch, and how someone like myself identifies as a witch, and I feel really powerful in saying that, and how what I want to talk about on this episode, that you might be a witch as well. And so I'm going to talk about signs that suggest that claiming that for yourself was not once safe, and so you hide and suppress and oppress a lot of your gifts and your witch. So anyway, I hope that kind of gives you a little bit of detail as well what we're going to be talking about today. So first off, I just want to talk about what it means to be a witch. Like, what is a witch? First of all, a lot of us have been conditioned to believe what a witch is based on Disney movies, Hocus Pocus, Harry Potter, whatever. We think of witches in usually a negative light. I know when I flew back to Australia, I watched The Little Mermaid, the new rendition of The Little Mermaid. And in The Little Mermaid, you might be familiar with the sea witch, Ursula. And in The Little Mermaid, Ursula turns Ariel into a human. She gives her legs from The Little Mermaid to a human. And the sea witch, Ursula, she is portrayed as evil in The Little Mermaid. However, one thing I just really want to highlight here is, regardless of what you've been told to believe about witches, whether it's in Snow White, The Little Mermaid, Harry Potter, Hocus Pocus, whatever, you can't deny that witches, these women that are portrayed in these movies, are very, very powerful. You know, Ursula turned Ariel into a human. Like, she gave her legs. Like, how friggin' powerful is that? That's pretty cool. So the first thing I want to establish is that witches equal power. You can't deny it. Regardless if you think it's good or it's bad, witches are powerful. The word witch derives from the old English word for wit, which means intelligence. So witch means intelligence. It means wisdom. To be a wise woman. You may have heard of that term before, wise woman, and we're going to talk about what is a wise woman. A wise woman was a woman connected to her intuition. She was connected to her truth. She was connected to the earth, to other beings, other realms. She was connected to her menstrual cycle. She was connected to the moon. She was connected to the divinity, the divine intelligence that all of us have access to. But these women had the ability to see. They could see beyond the veil. They could see truth. And they were able to bring that into matter, into the 3D. They were able to connect all of the threads, you know, from the cosmos to the earth's medicine, and to be able to create the medicine, I would say, that would heal people, that would awaken people, that would help people to remember who they are, that they are divine, that they are an aspect of God. They are God within themselves. And so these women were seen as healers, as midwives, as medicine women, as wise women, as herbalists, as midwives. This was what it meant to be a witch. And the reason why a lot of people don't want to associate with witches anymore is because for a long time there was a witch hunt. The patriarchy, which is a system that we've lived in within our society up until this point for thousands of years. So because the wise woman or the witch was seen as so powerful, she was seen as a direct threat to the patriarchy and the power that the church and the patriarchy wanted to have on society, to build a society where the masculine is more valued than the feminine, and women essentially were oppressed and suppressed for many, many centuries to come. So because these women were so powerful and they were a direct threat to the patriarchy, what ended up happening was a bloodshed when so many women ended up being killed, men as well, but predominantly it was a massacre of women. And women were not only tortured, they were burnt alive to the stake. And not only were they, you know, horribly killed, but they were done so in front of an audience. It was made to be some sort of spectacle where people were cheering to have these women burnt at the stake. So this is a very horrific trauma that still exists within a lot of women. It can also, as I mentioned, be men, because it's a trauma within the feminine. And as I've explained in previous videos, most of us that carry more feminine energy, so usually if you're born as a female, you have female genitalia and female hormones. Most of the time, not always, but most of the time you possess more feminine energy. We all have masculine and feminine energy, but you predominantly have more feminine energy. So that is why this wound has very much affected the feminine energy over many, many centuries of patriarchal influence. And because of that, those of us that are born women that do feel more connected to the feminine energy, we have more feminine in our bodies, in our energetic field, this wound is going to feel very deep within you if in past lifetimes or within your ancestral line, which could be very, very common. What I'm going to explain in this video are the signs that suggest that you might have this witch wound, which is the wounds, the memory, the cellular memory in your body of that trauma of the women being killed for many, many years. You know, this was a really horrible time in our history, which has kind of been covered up. It's, you know, you can find information on it, but it's still very much buried. It's not something that's super duper talked about, particularly the trauma that came from those events. And I'm someone, you know, I've been doing this work now for about a year, just really doing a lot of witch work, because I realized when I learned about the signs and when I learned about the witch trials and like what happened, I felt truth bumps all up my arms. Like I just felt this sick feeling and this contraction within my body. I do a lot of embodiment work, so I'm very sensitive to my body. And the more work I do on this, the more I can somatically feel in my body that there is a lot of deep trauma within my cells regarding the witch. And I don't have an exact memory of what happened to me in another lifetime, but I definitely feel that I was murdered, if not once, multiple times. Like some horrific things did happen for me in the past, being in connection to my witch and to my power. And so I really believe that in this lifetime, particularly because I study astrology as well, and when I look at my astrology chart, I can definitely see the witch wound, and I can see how a lot of what I've come here to do in this lifetime is to heal that and to step into my witch and to be seen in that, because now is the time for the witch. We are safe to be seen. They can't burn us anymore, although that is still happening in some parts of the world. I think it's really important that we raise awareness, those of us that have the privilege that we are safe to talk about witchcraft and talk about witches, you know, and particularly in the Western world with the younger generation, like it's now becoming kind of trendy to be into witchy type of stuff. Whereas for my generation, and definitely like my mothers and my grandmothers, like if you were to call a woman a witch, it was definitely seen as a derogatory term. It was used as an insult. It was not something that women were claiming for themselves. And it's so exciting to see these new, you know, young girls, teenagers, early 20-year-olds, and they are calling themselves a witch and getting into all of this like spiritual magic type of things, tarot cards and whatnot. So I think that's just absolutely wonderful. But still there is witch hunts going on in certain countries. So, you know, we can't ignore that this trauma is real and it still exists. And so I want to bring light to that in today's episode. So let's start now. So now we understand what is the witch wound. So it's like a wound that might not make logical, rational sense to our minds, but it shows up as signs that I'm going to explain that particularly are held within the body, because the body remembers. The body possesses a lot of wisdom, particularly when it comes to the witch wound, because yeah, like I said, not all of us remember our past lives, but the body remembers. Particularly it remembers trauma, like significant trauma that it's been through. If something terrible did happen to you or one of your loved ones, you could definitely possess the witch wound. So let's talk about some common signs that you might possess the witch wound. So the first sign is that you have this fear about shining too bright or being in your power, being seen in that. Do you hide away sometimes? Do you not always express what you want to say? Do you sometimes, and this is very common in a lot of women, where we don't say what we want to say because we're afraid of what the other person might take from that. We are usually more sensitive, so sometimes we're conscious about how that will be received. We've also been conditioned to be the good girl, to be nice, to be liked, and that our worth comes from, you know, our popularity and how people receive us. So that trauma in itself is tied to the witch wound. So it could just be like a blocked throat chakra, hard to express your truth, but particularly when it comes to speaking about spiritual knowledge or being seen as someone who is into spirituality, whatever that looks like for you. If there is some sort of fear that if I come out of the spiritual closet, that I might be judged for this, that I might be ostracized, laughed at, exiled from the community. There could even be a fear like, if I'm seen in this, I will die. Like, I know that sounds crazy, but that's definitely what comes up for me a lot, because I've been on this spiritual journey for a couple of years now, and before that I was not into any spiritual witchy type of stuff. And you know, the more I've dived into my spirituality after my spiritual awakening, it's more and more so, the more I, you know, come into alignment with who I am, the more I see that I've always been a witch. It's just that I didn't know, I guess, or I forgot. And I guess what's happening now is a remembering. And because I share so much on YouTube, I have a podcast, I share on Instagram, and I have TikTok and all of these social media platforms, what came up for me originally when I started sharing about spirituality, not even the witch, but I had a lot of fear about being seen in that. You know, I already had a social media platform prior to my spiritual awakening, and I was happy being seen as a flight attendant, as this travel girl, travel blogger. But as soon as I started talking about spirituality, I just was like, oh my gosh, if I come out about this, like, people, I will be judged for this, or maybe people won't like me. And I had this very deep fear about speaking about topics like this, you know. So it goes to show how far I've come in, you know, the past couple of years to be doing a YouTube video on the witch wound, and not only to be just sharing about this, but to actually be claiming that I am a witch. I was never able to do that, you know, maybe a year ago. I remember when I started running women's circles, the first women's circle that I ever organized 1 year ago, when I posted about it on my Instagram, I had a random woman message me and say, you're a witch, this is witchcraft, what you're doing. And I was really triggered by that. When I received that message, I just wanted to hide. I was really triggered, and it affected me so much just to be called a witch for running a women's circle. And I was like, how can she think that about me? And it's just funny, because that is exactly the patriarchy. That is exactly what happened to women many centuries ago. You know, if you were running a women's circle, they would say, witch, burn her. And there was just this mass murdering of women, you know, and some of them weren't even doing the work. It was just ended up being, like I said, a mass murder of women. And, you know, anyone who's been to a women's circle will know that they are just filled with so much love, and they are so beautiful, and it's all about connection and authenticity and relating to people on like this genuine soul level. And for anyone to think that that is demonic in any way, to associate that with, I don't know, like evil, you have no idea. Like, this is exactly what I'm talking about when I talk about the patriarchy, and how they've distorted our lens of what a witch is, and what a medicine woman is, and what a wise woman is. These women were healers. They weren't, you know, I'm sure there was some black magic going on, okay? Everything in this life, we live in a dualistic world where there's light and dark. Of course, there was going to be some, you know, witches doing black magic. But the majority of them, I assure you, were working as healers and light workers. And even if they were doing black magic, some of them, is it okay then to burn them to a stake? Like, is that really, like, we kill someone for that, like, horrendously, as like burning someone in public? So yeah, Anyway, I've said enough about that. So let's talk about another sign that you might possess the witch wound. So the second thing that I mentioned is you might struggle with your voice, particularly when it comes to talking about spiritual knowledge. So it can show up as a block in your throat chakra. It could be difficulty in having like hard conversations. It could be being really shy. I know since I was a little girl, I was always really shy. I've had to do so much work to come out of my shell and to be able to talk. And I really believe, like, doing the work that I do now, I always thought when I was a little girl that there was something wrong with me because I was so shy, because I was so quiet. And I really feel like I was carrying a past life trauma, that it wasn't safe to use my voice. And still to this day, I have a lot of fear around using my voice. I'm definitely like pushing past it and forcing myself to keep speaking, because that heals it, you know, coming out and talking about things that are difficult, talking about things that are taboo, just using your voice, you know, in a powerful way. That is so healing and so liberating. So if you do feel that you're blocked and it's really hard, particularly if you want to speak about spiritual or taboo topics, you know, the best way I really, just speaking from my experience, is just using your voice, just like putting yourself out there. And the more I do it, the more I'm like, okay, nobody cares, like nobody's coming to burn me, like it's all good. And it just gives me permission to keep sharing and to keep sharing and to keep sharing. And I hope that it can ripple out and inspire other people to share what's true for them as well, whatever that looks like for you. It doesn't have to be the same as me. It doesn't even have to be to do with witches. But if there's something that's true to you that you're afraid, like, what if they see me in this? What if I'm too much? What if I'm judged for this? You know, it's really about giving yourself permission to speak your truth, because like when we do that, we heal ourselves on so many levels. You know, women's voices were shut down for a long time. So many women died so that women now today could reclaim the feminine and use their voice with power. So I feel like we owe it to all the witches that they burnt to now step into the light and to share our wisdom and to reclaim the witch. I really feel like we owe it to all those women that came before us that sacrificed their life for this very time that we're in at the moment, where the feminine is rising. The third sign that you might possess the witch wound is that you have a fear of other women and being, particularly in large groups of women, I've seen this before, you have a fear of being betrayed by other women, because what the patriarchy did to divide the sisterhood. So women, our power is when we are together. You know, that's why I love women's circles so much, because they bring the sisterhood together and they show women how powerful we are when we support each other, when we lift each other up. It's not you versus me. It's we can all succeed. And we do that by collaboration and by sisterhood. And patriarchy knew that women coming together, supporting each other, that was when we were the most powerful. So what did they do? They divided the sisterhood. They turned women against other women. They pinned women against other women. And they did this by threatening women to rat out their sisters. Like, you know, can you imagine if you were a mother of, say, 2 children and, you know, a man comes and says, if you don't tell me who's the medicine woman or who's running the women's circle in the community, then I'm going to kill your kids and I'm going to kill you as well. And so these women were forced to rat out their sisters, to dob on their sisters, to protect themselves and their families. They had no choice. They were kind of cornered into a back wall, and I'm sure a lot of the women, they didn't want to rat out the other women. But that is exactly the kind of mindset, the kind of fear that the patriarchy installed in the psyche of people. People couldn't trust each other, particularly women. They couldn't trust each other. And we see that played out time and time again over history, because you see it all in Hollywood and in all the movies and TV shows and reality TV shows. So much of it is women pinned against women. And maybe they're not being burnt alive at the stake, but they're like fighting or competing for a job or for money or for status or for a man. It is always women pinned against women. And that is to keep us divided, which is why I really, really value women's circles, because they're so healing for that. And to see that there is so much power in sisterhood, and you can trust other women. They are your sisters, you know. Doesn't matter if we're related by blood, but there is something so sacred about women connecting authentically with one another and seeing that my struggles are your struggles and your struggles are my struggles, and we are in this together, and we really we go through the same thing. Doesn't matter our different backgrounds, nationalities, age. Like we really, as women, there is like this deep connection that we have with one another, where we almost go through the same story, you know. Like we have so many things that we hide about ourselves, that we carry with, you know, in shame or guilt about ourselves. And when we come into circle, we see that we're not alone, that so many of our struggles are actually the struggles of all the women sitting around us. And knowing that you're not alone is so healing. It's so comforting. Yeah, if you haven't been to a women's circle, you know, I run them. My circles are called Divine Feminine Circle. I run them online and in person. But, you know, you can find one in your local community, and I really encourage you to check it out, because they're so powerful, particularly for healing the witch wound. The next point I want to talk about is that you struggle to connect to your intuition. As women, our intuition is our powerhouse. It is so important, and so many women are disconnected from that part of themselves. That's our feminine, like our feminine wisdom. It comes from our intuition and tuning into that. It's not rational, it's not logic, it comes from the body, you know. And I really believe every woman, I mean men as well have it, but women in particular, it's like we have this strong inner knowing sometimes, you know, and we don't trust it. And not being able to trust your instincts, to trust your intuition, is a sign that you might possess the witch wound. Because for many, many centuries, women were murdered for being in connection to their intuition. Women had to turn against not only their sisters, but themselves, because it wasn't safe to do this work. It wasn't safe to be seen as a witch. It wasn't safe to be seen as a healer or a medicine woman or a wise woman. It wasn't safe to be seen as that. So they switched it off. They switched it off. And so much patriarchal influences places so much value on the mind and the intellect and the rationality, and we've lost connection to our intuition. We've lost connection to our bodily wisdom. And the last thing that I want to talk about that might suggest that you have this witch wound is that when you hear about the witch trials, even watching a video like this, if you're gravitated towards learning more about the witches, the witch wound, if there's anything that what I'm saying that just feels true to you, maybe you're getting truth bumps up your arm, trust that. You know, I remember when I watched this YouTube documentary on the witch trials, and I felt sick almost. Like I just knew that there was more to this than what I was seeing. I knew that on some level that I had experienced some of this myself. And I don't know, you have a strong reaction to hearing about the witch trials or wanting to learn more about them, then that could be an indicator that this happened to you in a previous lifetime or in your ancestral line. And you could still be carrying, you know, the trauma within your ancestral DNA. I think they've proven now scientifically that we can carry 19 generations back of ancestral trauma. And I think it's proving to be much, much more, but they haven't actually got the science to back it up just yet. But you see that it even though it's happened years ago, it's still carried in our bodies. And this happened, you know, across the globe. So it's affected many different cultures, particularly Europe. This was a big, you know, dark time in Europe. So if you have like European background like myself, then yeah, definitely could be in your ancestral line even. So those are kind of the main signs. There's other ones, but I just wanted to touch on a few of the main signs that you might possess the witch wound. And now I want to talk about a few ways that you can heal it. So For me as an embodiment coach, this trauma really exists within the body. So for me, it's been really, really beneficial to do embodiment work. So that just looks like me sometimes putting music on and just setting the intention to clear the trauma that exists within my cells. I had a really powerful embodiment practice the other day, and I don't even know where it came from. I was in like a good mood. I started moving my body as I always do, and I went into this state where I was just sobbing in my living room, and I was saying, I released this fear. And I remember like hitting this part of me, like the back of my heart. I felt like I was carrying trauma there, and I was like, I released this, and I was moving my body. So that's kind of what embodiment is. It's really to just, embodiment means to be in the body. So it doesn't have to make rational sense. It's just allowing your body to move you rather than you move your body. You allow your body to move you. And it takes some time to get used to. I do have a video that you can purchase on how to do an embodiment practice, which I'm going to put in the links below. And I also have a previous video on what is feminine embodiment. So I'm going to link it up here. And that's free for you to view if you want to get more into feminine embodiment. But I really suggest embodiment work for healing the witch wound. The second thing, of course, I'm going to say is sisterhood. Join a women's circle. As I mentioned before, they're so healing, particularly for the witch wound. It activates your throat chakra. You're going to be sharing, being witnessed by other women. You're healing the sister wound, being able to trust other women. So on many, many levels, is going to help you heal this witch wound. And what I found going back to women's circles, see how I said going back to women's circles? When I started going to women's circles, I felt this remembering, like I've done this before, you know, and you might feel the same way. Like I really feel like women's circles, if you feel called to attend one, it's almost like a coming home. And the third thing that you can do to heal the witch wound, as I mentioned before, is like using your voice with power. You know, if you are into like tarot cards, or, you know, you have psychic abilities, or you love astrology, or, you know, whatever it is that you like, fairies, dragons, it doesn't matter. It doesn't even have to look that woo, but it's really just like, it could even just be your emotions actually, you know, like being able to speak about them and not to feel shame about it, not to always have to be like in your masculine energy up in your head, like being more present in the body and just speaking what is true to your heart or your womb even, you know, like what's coming up for you, and just being really honest with yourself and with others. And that is so healing. That can heal many chakras, because they're all interlinked, and activating that throat chakra to speak your truth, and the heart as well if it's coming from there. So that is my suggestion to healing the witch wound. That's kind of the journey I've been on. And for me, it's looked like sharing on social media. That's been really healing, to put myself out there, make videos like this podcast, and to not get killed for it. So, you know, I feel like I've come a long way, and if this video resonates for you, then trust me, if I can do it, you can do it. It's deep work. That's what I'm finding. There's many layers, but it's possible to heal this. And this is the time of the witch. The world needs the witch right now. We really need more healers on the planet. You know, I think if you're anywhere in the world, you've seen what's happening in the news. There's a lot of pain. There's a lot of suffering happening on the planet right now. And what the world needs is the healing powers of the witch. We need the medicine women. We need the women connected to the truth. That see beyond the veil, that can bring that divine light, that divine grace, that divine intelligence, that divine wisdom into the present, and share that with the world, because the world needs this. It needs it so badly right now. So don't, please, if this is resonating for you, and you feel like a call to work more with this archetype within yourself, to reclaim your witch, then to make sure that you don't shy away from it. Do not hide anymore. They can't burn our sister. And the more of us that we come out of the broom closet and we claim this for ourselves, the more power we have. As I said, women, our power is when we come together. It's when we stand hand in hand and we use our love, our light, our grace, our compassion, our empathy to work wonders in this world, because that's what it needs right now. So that's what I wanted to share. Also, the last thing I wanted to mention before I go is that I am running an online new moon women's circle. It's a new moon in Scorpio, which is of course the zodiac sign of the witch. I have a lot of Scorpio energy. Hello, I'm a witch. I mean, it says it all in my astrology, in my natal chart. But I've decided to run a new moon in Scorpio women's circle, particularly focused on healing the witch wound. So if this video calls to you, if you feel, you know, a resonance, if you want to dive deeper on this topic and learn more about what happened during the witch trials, which I'll be sharing at this event, I'll also be running some rituals for us to heal this wound together, because remember, there's power in sisterhood. And I'll also be giving you some beautiful divine transmissions that come through me to share with you guys to heal this, because yeah, we need the witch right now. We need her. We need that energy on the planet so badly, and I feel it. I feel her in the collective at the moment. Maybe because Samhain is coming up, Halloween, I don't know, but I'm feeling a lot of witch energy right now. And that's in Australia, you know, like we don't even really celebrate Halloween here. But I feel it, and I feel really called to talk about, like, create this YouTube video and then to do this event on the 12th of November. That's when it is, the 12th of November, Sunday, 12th of November, 7:30 Australian Eastern Standard Times. I'll put it in the link below if you want to register and you want to join me there. I'd love to see you there. It's a live event. I'm going to record it as well, so if you can't make it live, I'll send you a copy of the recording. But you'll have to register via the link below. So if you feel called, and only if you feel called, then I will see you there. Otherwise, take care of yourself, and I'll see you in my next video. Mwah. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel and you like this content, then make sure you press the subscribe button so you don't miss out any of my future videos, because I definitely want to create more videos on this topic and go even deeper with you on this, because it's a passion of mine.